Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Heritage Matters for this Friday, the 4th of July, 2025. As we know, not part of our heritage, but today, the 4th of July, the United States celebrates its Independence Day. And so I want to wish all the folks in the US a happy Independence Day. And in fact, one of our Sons of the Soil will be joining us from New York shortly to have a discussion. He was here some weeks ago, Mr. Cyfroy Phillip. He is one of the chief players in the Keys Global Empowerment Association, or KGEA. And so we are awaiting his joining us shortly to have a further discussion on the Keys Global Empowerment Association. Now, for those of you who are listening, thank you for joining us and welcome. And if you want to call in, the numbers are 466-0989. 466-0989 or 662-0989. That's 662-0989. And if you're calling from the US, it's 718-285-6984. So feel free to call us and join us for the program. And please feel free to call in. We very much appreciate your call and your participation in the show. Well, just a recap of the last weekend. I think we had a fairly successful, from all indications, a fairly successful music festival. Our annual exposition of musical and singing talent. Quite a lot of local acts were on the show, and they gave a good account of themselves, along with a number of international and regional acts. And I think the show has been dubbed as one of the most successful and best shows that we have had for the St. Kitts Music Festival thus far. So I guess the sights are now set for next year, where we will begin planning for the 2026 edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival. And I will just want to say kudos to all the organizers and planners of the event for staging such a successful event. And we look forward to the subsequent editions. Up next, though, as part of our cultural scene, the next event is going to be in Nevis. I think the Mango Festival. And then, of course, we have to look forward after that to the Culturama in Nevis. So we have lots of action coming up in Nevis. The Culturama is scheduled for, well, it begins in July, but culminates in August. So let's look forward to that. And just as the Nevisians would have come over in their numbers to support the St. Kitts Music Festival, so too we from St. Kitts will be flocking over, I hope, to Nevis to support and celebrate Culturama with them. So let's look forward to that. The Keys Global Empowerment Association, they had a discussion with us a few weeks ago. It's an association formed for the Keys community. And it's amazing how we have all of these little communities throughout St. Kitts that are getting together and organizing themselves in ways that benefit their communities, and in an effort to build community spirit, build community rapport and involvement, and of course the projects that they do and hope to do will also benefit their respective communities. We have a number of things to discuss with the Keys Global Empowerment, but just to remind you that I think the last time when we were here, we talked about a number of things, including the association and how it was formed. We'll recap that in a short while as soon as Mr. Philip joins us. But we talked about some of the things that were important in the Keys community. And as many of you know, Keys has always been a center for turtles. They have one of the most well-known beaches, the Keys Beach on the Atlantic side, at which turtles come there to nest and lay their eggs. We have, I think, 3 species of turtle that come to St. Kitts. That come to St. Kitts, and they are the green turtle, the leatherback turtle, and the hawksbill turtle. And Keys was one of the main places where they nested, and therefore I think many of you would know that when turtles nest at a beach, the hatchlings, if they survive, they tend to return by some miracle of nature to the same beach, even though they wander miles and miles away to other parts of the ocean. They always find their way back to the same beach to nest. And this is why it's so important for us to preserve our beaches, our waters, and so on, to make sure that we do not disturb the turtles' ability to find their original nesting places and to continue to propagate their species. Keys has also been a place where a great amount of sand mining has occurred, and that is something which we may discuss also. I think Mr. Philip is with us now? No? Yes, so right now we're going to take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back with you. So stay tuned.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis.
Yes, welcome back to Heritage Matters. And we are, as I mentioned before, awaiting a call from Mr. Saifoy Philip of the Keys Global Empowerment Association. So we hope to have him shortly with us. And in the meantime, while we're waiting on him, we were recapping some of the things that we spoke about last time with regards to the Keys and the association which they have formed for the Keys community. We talked about the turtles and how important the Keys Beach has been for turtle nesting and for their continued development. Now, turtles have been one of the species on our planet that has been classified as endangered. And that is mainly because of the fact that humans preyed very heavily on turtles. Even in St. Kitts and at Keys, there was a time when turtles were caught, they were killed, and the meat was sold and used as a very sought after delicacy. It is said that turtle had like 4 different kinds of meat, and there were people who liked the various different parts and would flock to ensure that they secure the parts that they like. And then, of course, there were the eggs, and many people liked the eggs, and some people swore by the eggs having certain properties that they look for eating turtle eggs. But I think that the efforts that have been undertaken to protect the turtle in St. Kitts have been successful, because we no longer see turtle meat on the local meat market. We also no longer see turtle eggs being offered for sale or being available. And so the turtles come here and nest successfully. However, I was reading a statistic recently. I don't have the figures with me, but it appears that despite the fact that places like St. Kitts have embarked on protection of turtles, it appears that their numbers may still be declining. I think the people who do the research, we have a turtle monitoring organization here. I think it's coming out of the Ross University, and it appears as though the recorded numbers of turtles that are coming to nest seems to be falling, and perhaps pretty rapidly. And so that's a serious cause for concern. But of course, there are other things at play other than the people in our communities trying their best to conserve and preserve the turtles. Turtles, I think, have been very susceptible to the use of plastics and their disposal in guts and rivers and even from boats, because especially clear plastic bags, they tend to ingest them and eventually choke and kill the turtle. Reason for that is one of the creatures that turtles tend to feed upon as a main part of their diet are jellyfish. Now, if you were to float off our oceans, out of our guts, out of our garbage, and so on, so that we can look after some of these creatures. I think Mr. Philip has eventually joined us, so I'd like to greet him. Good morning, Mr. Philip.
Good morning, Mr. Hanley, and thanks for your patience and for inviting the group back in your well-valued program, and hopefully we'll share some information that will be of benefit to the wider community as well.
Great, and it's good to have you. And we would like to try to continue the discussion that we had some weeks ago. And so, first of all, as a reminder to those who might have missed the first portion, the first edition, where you were on air, remind us, what is the KGEA?
Yes, again, thank you. KGEA, that acronym means Keys Global Empowerment Association, and so on. The short form is KGEA. That group was launched last December, 22nd to be exact, in the village of Keys. Actually, it was launched at the newly renovated and upgraded and renamed community center. And that center's name, by the way, is the Louis Philip Jones Multipurpose Center. And adjacent to that building, that structure, is the Keys Hardcourt. That opening was held the Sunday afternoon, and it was deliberately kept on a Sunday afternoon because the events on that day highlighted what used to happen on a Sunday afternoon in the village when we were children growing up. So a number of activities were geared around celebrating stuff that we did as children, so as to remind those of us who are now older, as well as the younger children who know nothing about it, what it was like. At the first edition of this, when we were here, Mr. Don James, who is the treasurer, and by the way, I hold the position as the president of the group. And prior to that launch, the executive, as I just mentioned, myself, President Don James as the assistant president and treasurer. Don, the assistant treasurer, her name is Joan David Spencer. Her assistant is Yvette Blaze, who I'm hoping would be able to join us during this broadcast. Quickly, the group name is deliberate because we are not only concerned about people who presently live in the village, but people in the wider diaspora, and so hence Keys Global. Yeah, what we spoke about persons who we honored at last December, and we are hoping to make this an annual event. So here's a PR just to let people know that God's willing, this coming December, we're hoping to celebrate the first anniversary with a number of activities as well. But during that first activity, a number of persons who has contributed to the village development and growth over the years, they were recognized with plaques, as well as a number of other activities where we distributed book bags to all the children of the primary school age group. We had 2 nights of caroling in Keys because, as most people know, Keys is much bigger now than it. We produced about a week and a half ago our policy and procedural manual in partial fulfillment to get recognized and certified by the relevant ministry as an NGO. this for us is a major achievement because it will allow us to get on a financial footing in order to complete some of our projects. So basically, that is what we touched on last time, and I'm sure we could go into detail on some of these things later on.
Yeah, you spoke about some persons who you honored last December. Could you give us a little insight into who some of those persons were?
Okay. For persons who are not too well acquainted with Keys, Keys still probably represent one of the smallest communities on the island. In fact, growing up, it was not uncommon for people referring to us from Keys like they were sorry for us. And sometimes people would say, "You're from Keys? Poor Keys." Why did they say that? At that time, we didn't have running water in the homes. That's a development post-1980. At that time, we had a main, what we call a tank, the standpipe, sitting at the Keon end of the village. That no longer functions. And there were 3 standpipes along the roadside. As you know, Keys, the village lies at the foot of the Keys Hills, sandwiched between the hillside, the island main road, the railway, and the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. So the entire railway system and the road runs through Keys. So growing up back then, it was a challenge. We, I'm sure like other communities, had to head water. It was not uncommon before we went to school to go to as far as Cunningham Estate. That's one of the estates around the Keon area to get water.
Oh, that's fun.
So it was a challenge. So you had to get up in the morning because most of the time the water supply was very limited. It was gravity fed from the tank going to the Basti area, and the water would drain downwards. And so that was a challenge. Now, during those times, one of those persons, or 2 of those persons that we honored, was Mr. Alfred Cook.
Uh-huh.
He was easily identified because he operated a shop, and that shop provided the necessary food stuff, dry goods, and other services that not only the villagers enjoy, but he was really a person who looked after the poor person. Those days, you had somebody who didn't what we call trust anything at the shop. You had your little card, sometimes in the back of a cigarette box or something, that whatever your parents send you to Mr. Cook's shop, you would get. Mm-hmm. At the end of the week, no doubt, when they got paid, they would pay whatever, and they continued. But he continued that service, and even after he passed on, some of his children carried on that business. Incidentally, that he named the shop Newfoundland Bar. And Newfoundland, it is claimed that name came from a cane field. Most of the cane fields apparently carried names so that the cane cutters and people associated with the sugar, harvesting the sugar, would know which field was going to be cut during that time. Apparently, the cane field was where the shop was one of the cane fields, and that name was Newfoundland.
Okay.
So he called his shop Newfoundland Bar.
Uh-huh.
And it was very, seemingly he was very looking ahead, because when Senki started to get involved in tourism, a number of visitors from North America, especially Canada, and driving through and along the island main road in Keys, they were fascinated to see the name Newfoundland
Yes, because that's a
on a little
province
wooden shop.
area, yeah.
And of course, they would stop by and patronage the whole business. So that was one of the things Mr. Cook did. And by the way, he was also a noted baker, and people from as far down Keon, Artleys, right down as far as Tabernacle would come to Keys, especially on a Friday or Saturday, to get the bread. So he went even beyond the boundary of Keys in terms of supplying that.
Okay.
So for us growing up, we didn't appreciate what he was doing until later.
Yeah.
And his name is associated with folklore in the village as well.
Okay, let me continue that
It
in a
is
short while.
claimed-
Sorry, we're going to break for a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the folklore and a little more on that. Okay, so
Okay.
listeners, we'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us
Found the sound.
on that. Okay, so
Okay.
listeners, we'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us.
Found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
From the time that you taste it, man, you know that it's greatness. Some icing.
Shopping with TDC just got much easier. Here's how. Log on to shoptdcgroup.com. Shop at your convenience at any time, from anywhere, with your smartphone, tablet, or computer. With our safe and secure payment checkout, you choose the option to pick up in-store or have your goods delivered right to your door. It's that easy. Shop tdcgroup.com, your one-stop online store.
Shop anywhere, shop anytime, same quality you love. Now online. Shop.
www.shoptdcgroup.com.
Listeners, we are back on Heritage Matters, and we have with us today Mr. Saifoy Philip of the Keys Global Empowerment Association. And we were just talking about some of the persons they have honored in their Keys community. And when we broke, he was talking about Mr. Alfred Crook. And he was telling us about his shop, the Newfoundland Bar, and also about how Mr. Crook got also involved in folklore. But before we go on to talk about the folklore, Saifroy, could you tell me, is that bar, Newfoundland Bar, still in existence in Keys?
Yes and no. It has undergone some changes. After Mr. Cook's passing, his children continued to operate the business, but of course with migration and, the young people having other matters dealing with, as far as I'm aware, the original shop had to be renovated. But before it did that, it was rented out to another villager. I think the status right now, I'm not sure it's fully operational at this point in time, but I stand to be corrected. But that had been there from my knowledge as far back as even before my age, and I'm an old guy now. So that had to be like a late 40s, early 50s, right up until I would say the early 2000 and beyond. That shop was there. There's a shop operating in an adjacent area, but not on this spot. I don't think it carries that particular name.
Okay.
But when I was there in December, there was an actual work being done on the site at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you were telling us that
So,
Mr. Crook also got involved in folklore and that sort of thing. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, he was a local hero in the sense that remember back in those days, it was very difficult for the ordinary man to have any Keys geographically is bounded back then by Keys Gut, going towards Canada Estate, and by then geographical in the parish of St. Peter's. So Keys, as small as it is, has some people who live in St. Mary's parish, generally speaking, but that area around the Gut and the Keys extension near to Morgan Heights and Canada Estate, which is part of it, especially cows. And back in those days, just like now, the monkey continued to be more than a pest. So the attempts to farm were hampered by the prevalence of monkeys. And it is claimed that he, in order to keep them at bay, he made his own rifle. And he would shoot with the monkeys and bring them down. Well, word soon got around to the local police that Mr. Cook had a gun. Back in those days, you had to be somebody of means to have a gun, usually associated with the estates and stuff like that. So apparently the police came and took away his rifle. He wasn't registered. They found out that the rifle he had, and as I said, this is folklore, was more powerful than the rifles that the military, the volunteers and stuff had. So they kept the gun. Rather than ask him to pay to license, they kept it. Well, Mr. Cook subsequently made another gun. And so after a while, they gave up on taking his gun away from him and left him to his own self. But that he saw for his pioneering work in the entrepreneurial world, we felt that he has gone above and beyond, and he was one of those top persons we recognized. A second person recognized, his name was James France. We just call him Mr. France. Mr. France operated a little bar shop, and that bar shop was around the Gut. Now, Mr. France's shop was smaller than Mr. Cook's shop, but it served a purpose. So as the people who lived around Keys Gut, going towards Canada, rather than coming all the way into Keys by Mr. Cook's shop, they would stay by Mr. France. So he provided a little service as well for many, many, many years. And we also recognize his pioneering ability. He provided the same service as Mr. Cook, but on a lower scale, a lower level of service, basically. We also recognize a couple, William and Amelia Stephen. They pioneered work in the baptistry. The Baptists had started to build out started in Keon, and then they came to Keys, where they operated a Sunday school. The Sunday school operated out of the home of William and Amelia Stephen. And for many years that it rivaled another Sunday school, which I'll come back to in a little while. But one of these things that they did, apart from starting the Baptist Sunday school in the village, they pioneered the beginnings of a savings system they had in the Sunday school, where children were allowed to bank monies there. These monies were recovered at Christmas time, and it was a big thing then. So that gave not only for the children to save, but parents who didn't have a savings account because of the low wages that they earned and couldn't go to Bastia, used the opportunity to put their little dollars aside during the course of the year, and then big funds was one of the pioneering young contractors back in the 80s that built a number of structures in and around St. Kitts, including things like the Pelican Mall, Horsford's Value Mart, several schools around the island. The company was known as Stephen and Associates.
Ah, yes,
they
I know.
Came out of Kings Village. Yes. So we honored that brother for his work in the Sunday school, not necessarily for that yet. We honored another couple, Joseph and Pauline Phillip. They they originated from Bastia, McKnight, to be exact. They happened, well, I wouldn't say happened. My parents, they started the Sunday school work in Keys. Without giving out my age, that would be back in the very early 50s. And that work continued even after my father passed in 1979 and stuff like that. But the Sunday school hardly functions at this point in time. But that Sunday school was the foundation for Keys. Even because at that time it was and still is at this present time, the only church building in the village. So although it served as a church primarily, it was the only place for social activities. Everybody went to Sunday school there. Everybody in the village. That time, people from Keys, as I said, you remember I said at the beginning that people refer to Keys as poor Keys.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On Sundays or Saturdays, you had to walk or to carry on for church. Literally walk.
And that's about what, maybe 2 miles or so?
That's about under 2 miles, just about under 2 miles, depending on where in Cairn. If you're going all the way up to the Anglican Church in Cairn, then yeah. But it's at least a mile plus to get there. And we had to walk there. I used to tell people I wasn't much of an athlete, but if I were to class myself as an athlete, it's because I had to do so much walking. I literally walked 6 days a week to and from Cairn. 5 days to go to school, and 1 day, the Sunday, to go to church. So I was always fit. I never had to train. It was natural.
Yeah,
not for myself.
Part of the daily routine.
Yeah, it was part and part. Plus, remember I said that had nothing to do with heading water, especially during the crop time, eh?
Yes.
Morning and evening. So that was part and parcel of Keys' development. But coming back to that Sunday school, the Sunday school grew to such an extent that irrespective of which church people attended, in Cairn, whether it's a Moravian, the Anglican, the Methodist, you name it, on Sunday afternoon, everybody came to Bethel Gospel Hall Sunday School then. The person who I was hoping to join us, we were hoping in this program, she's not able to do it right now.
Okay.
But she is a product of that Sunday school. She's actually an international evangelist as we speak. And she has her own global outreach called Upper Room Ministries. She's part of KGEA. She is the assistant secretary. She is based in Miami. But she's a product of that Sunday school and many others, too numerous to mention at this point in time.
Okay.
But I just thought mention those 4 persons who we honored at that time.
Okay, I'm going to take a pause here right now for a little commercial break. So listeners, please stick and stay, and we'll be right back after this short commercial break.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
From the time that you taste it, man, you know that it's greatness. Some ice in your cup, tell your friends link up. You know that we liming. Signal the bartender. No, we don't need chaser. But if you want, it could mix with anything. We drinking Stones ginger wine, the original ginger wine. We drinking like I say. Stones ginger wine. Greatness is forever. Company Limited. We care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will. Guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. CDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Okay, and welcome back to Heritage Matters, and we have with us today Mr. Saifoy Philip of Keys. However, he's currently living in the diaspora, and he's joined us today to have a conversation about Keys and its organization called the Keys Global Empowerment Association. Now, Mr. Philip, you were just talking about the Bethel Gospel Hall and the Sunday school that was so popular there. Continue.
Yes, just wrap up on that. Yeah, as I said, it was the only community building, so to speak, in the village. We're talking about those days, as I said, when we had 3 standpipes in the village, 3 poles with lights on it. I mean, the excitement when the village got 3 lights in the whole village was amazing. And so, you know, prior to that, when it got dark, you know, the whole village closed down. I mean, those were the days when transportation was limited and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Keys location, anything going past Keys anything going on the east side of the island had to pass through Keys. And because everybody was living on the island main road, so to speak, everybody would always be aware of what's happening. But I'll come back to that subsequently. One of the totally popular things that happened in the one activity that was popular in the village was the Christmas Sunday school treat. Mm-hmm. The Gospel Hall Church St. Kitts held a number of activities. And the one that interested the children most, because that was what the building was really about. Church was not, the regular morning service was not held in the building. That came years later in the post-80s area. The only thing that was held in that building was Sunday school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 to 5. And then there was a night service from around 7:30 till about 8:30. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, the buildings were closed down. My memory serves me right. There used to be what they call a sunshine corner used to be held from time to time there as well. But the major event was the Christmas, held on during the week of the Christmas, in all Gospel Hall around St. Kitts. And it was a time when children were given poems, as we used to say back then, recitations to learn. And it climaxed on a Friday evening. The children will recite their poems, do little skits. But most importantly, gifts were handed out to children and some little snacks, mainly some buns and some sweets. And I know the buns back then were all manufactured in Bastia down on the Irish Town Bay Road by Mrs. Stevens. She would bake those buns, and the scent from those buns filled that little building, and the children couldn't wait for that particular Friday evening.
Everybody excited to
get
their
buns.
Get
the prizes, but more importantly to get those buns. Little goodies. In fact, those goodies didn't make it home into those brown paper bags, you know. So it was, and the thing about it is that the parents who would send the children to Sunday school, and that evening at the program, the parents used to fill up the building sometime even before the children could get their seats.
Uh-huh. They were just as excited.
It was a big community thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
So they were just as excited.
They were just as exciting. And in fact, sometimes it ended a little controversy because the prizes were given based on your frequency in attendance. Mm-hmm. So you had to you had to come to Sunday school for a number of Sundays in the year, right, to qualify. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of parents sometimes used to forget Sunday school during the year and only wait until maybe October, November, which would give them just a couple of Sundays But they were looking for their treat, as we used to call it back then. And if that child didn't get any treat, my parents, Mr. Philip or Mrs. Philip, you would hear people say, Mr. Philip, how come my son here? You would hear people say, Mr. But they didn't remember, they didn't come. So you always had to cater for the extra bags and buns. I mean, if they didn't get a prize, no problem, eh? But please, they need the buns.
They need the bun.
The 2 buns and some sweets there. So it was a big thing back in the village. Sadly, it is no more as we speak. And that is why when I started, I spoke about at the opening we had last December. We kind of recreated some of those things at the opening. The singing of Sunday school songs, the literally ringing of the bell. There was a bell that was wrong, and not the conventional bell, you know. A piece of railway line attached on a piece of wire, metal. The literally ringing of the bell. There was a bell that was wrong north and southwards, especially where we visited shut-ins, but we also distributed Bibles to every home that was visited then. So that was a pre-launch before the Sunday. The actual Sunday, we had the local villagers plus other persons from surrounding areas that came. As I said, we sang a village choir conducted by the indomitable Lucine Pemberton Vaughan. She put together a group that was amazing, so to speak. And we literally walked the village those 2 evenings. The actual, that particular Sunday afternoon, we also distributed some book bags, and that is why the lady who should have been on this program, her name is Hodges from Keys. For persons who know Keys, Keys had a post office box close to Mr. Cook's shop. The structure is still there. That little post concrete box is where people used to drop their mails and stuff like that back in. We are hoping to get him to come home this Christmas, God's willing. That's the intention.
While,
on Amazon.
While you're looking for it, we're going to go for a short commercial break, and we'll come right back.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Listeners, we'll be back after this short break.
Value Mart IGA is helping with our essential everyday products and your products. Shop smart and spend less at Value Mart, where price matters most. Value Mart IGA is
very.
Yeah, she's originally a Hodge, but she married. She's a
Blaze.
the book. So again, for listeners and others, Kevin Blaze, Blaize, is the name of the author. He's on Amazon. Blaze to Breakthrough: My Journey to Survival.
Okay, that sounds like maybe a little autobiography.
Well, I'm gonna let you go and get that book.
I certainly will.
And others, but yeah. But his mother, Yvette, who should have been on the program, being St. Kitts in Christmas to do much more than she did initially when she was back there last time.
Okay, well,
because
when she comes
that
down,
was
we can
mainly for
invite
the
her in.
launch, but he'll give us some more time.
Okay.
Just by the way, before I don't think I mentioned, if people are interested to get in touch with us, and I know you probably have it down, but let me just mention it. I have a St. Kitts number and an overseas number.
Okay, please share.
Those are some numbers.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any specific questions, but speaking, I don't know if you have any specific questions, but speaking to persons who are interested, we are in the process of, my words, unearthing persons or Keynesians, as we call ourselves. Keynesians. So that's a word for our lexicon locally.
Yeah.
And is not just whatever association you have with keys, we welcome you. Let me say that again. Whether it's your mother, your father, you have an aunt from there, a good friend from there, and you want to be part of...
Tell us about your projects.
Absolutely. Even before we... stuff like that, what this group is hoping to do is to try to pull all these loose ends together and broaden the scope and regional matters to us. So regional matters to us. So health clinics, regional teams. We have a number of initiatives. There's a walk along the beach, and that is a whole different ball game.
A little bit of it, but...
Yeah, because there's a whole now, I think, a national initiative documentation of what all this village life is like. That initiative
compiled, are they going to be available for the public to access?
I hesitated. The quick answer is, of course. That's the whole idea. What we are trying to do, however, because of the limited availability of space in the village, we are working in collaboration with the ministry, who is in charge of the facility, the multipurpose center, to see what we can do there, given that there are a number of other individuals and groups who also vie for the space. What I can tell you, what the group is doing at the moment, we are hoping, and as I said, we are still in consultation with the ministry, we are hoping to use our anniversary date every month. Our documentation in place to have a particular time in the day or evening where we can display those things at the center.
Any thought to putting them online for online? Any thought to putting them online for online access?
Well, yes, that's one of the big things, and that is why we are in the process of trying to recruit the younger, technically
savvy,
IT-minded persons to become involved with us. Those of us who are challenged a little in that field is an opportunity, and that is why we say KGA is so important, because we want to incorporate everybody who has an interest in things, heritage, and that is why, again, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present ourselves out to the public, so that persons who have those particular set skills can become involved. Whether it's to help to set up a Facebook page, get on YouTube, you name it. Whatever you can do to help us document this stuff. As we get these photographs, we have them there to display. But as I said, we want to be careful, because the center is used, and especially at this time of the year, during the hurricane season, when it is a designated hurricane shelter.
Oh, yes.
We want to make sure that we preserve those documents that we are able to get.
Good.
So yes, so those are things we are doing. We have already compiled a list talking about documentation and projects. We have already compiled a list of some of the earliest inhabitants, as we know, who lived in the village, and we have a rough sketch map to show where they lived in the village back then. And again, that is ongoing as we touch base with the older folks, and people have that information. Another project is to do a lot of not only identifying but getting permission for us to adopt spaces and sites in the village of historical and geographical importance. I mentioned earlier about the location of the early standpipes in the village.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the old post office box, the pipe, we used to call it the tank. And from time to time, we see these defaced over the years, and we are trying to get, the authority to kind of assist us in trying to make sure these things are properly preserved and properly marked. In recent years, sidewalks and walls have been erected through the village, and the authorities must be given a plus for that, because that is one of the challenges that the villagers had and continue to have, the ability to walk along the village. But the walls, we are hoping to use the walls to display some information. In the past, we have noted with concern that persons from outside of the village has come in and start to do their own thing in inverted commas, and nobody seems to know who gave them permission. So we're trying to work with the ministry involved, our ministries, to find out how, we can regularize what is done in the community with people, without people just coming. A lot of sand mining was done. It was in Keys.
Yes.
On the gut sides. We got the dirty end of the stick, so to speak.
Yes,
so
yes.
we're trying to put
Up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right. Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy supply.
Okay, folks, we're back with our guest, Mr. Sifroy Phillip of the Keys Global Empowerment Association, or KGEA. Mr. Phillip, you were about to give us some additional information when you went on our commercial break.
Yes, we were going to show some of the projects we hope to initiate, not only this year, but next year. Because some of these programs will be running concurrently, because some of them are very personalized. As I said, the health initiative, for example, as we speak, some screening of the services that are needed by the villagers are being done prior to this health clinic that is being physically being done, and we want to make something like this a quarterly initiative in the community. One of the big areas, projects we are hoping to initiate centers around safety, vehicular traffic safety in the village, and it's a sore point for us villagers, and it has been so from time immemorial, so to speak. There has always been accidents in Keys Village, and we feel that more can be done, and we, the members of the KGEA, we have been in the process of identifying some initiatives that we can do to enhance and upgrade what is being done presently by the authorities, because gone are the days when you can afford to wait for things to be done by the authorities. So in conjunction with the relevant authorities, whether it's the traffic department, fire and rescue, Coast Guard, the scenic railway, all these are personal from these businesses traverse through Keys. In order to get to Bastille on the eastern side, you must pass through Keys. A verse in the Bible says Jesus had to pass through Jericho. Well, if you're going to Bastille from Keon, Tabernacle Mansion, you must pass through Keys. And if you're going back home on that side of the island, you must pass through Keys. There is no bypass.
There's no bypass.
Right? If you're going on the scenic railway, you must pass through Keys. So, safety of the people in the village is a big issue. And one of the things we feel that Keys can get a lot more attention is the amount of and the visibility of the signage in the village. We're not here to bash the authorities because there's always a limit to the resources you have. But we feel that some improvement in signage could be done, right? If you walk along the scenic railway track through Keys, if you can find one sign, that is a lot. And it will run through the entire length of the village. Yes, there might be one or two signs on the roadside about the speed limit, but why isn't it posted on the road itself? These are the days of the technology. Why isn't there a consistent? And don't talk about the volume of traffic at peak hours in the morning and in the evening.
Yes, because as you say,
The
all the villages from Dieppe Bay come straight forward on that side, have to pass through Keys in order to get to Bastille.
It has to.
And back home, of course.
And back home. And you're not and so the KGEA we are in the process of getting certain safety equipment, some PPEs, which we feel we can distribute to the villagers on an individual basis, or give a certain number of, say, safety vests, glow-in-the-dark stuff, that in case you happen to be out. That's an initiative we are working on. We are in the process of contacting personnel again from the traffic department, what type of signage they allow, because we don't know if we can do it, but we want to collaborate with them to help to do that. And we did some of that back in December. Beautification along the scenic railway and the roadside generally, we feel that can be done. There's right now we are trying to collaborate with the other groups, given we have been in the hurricane season, collection of garbage and cleaning and pruning of trees and stuff from around buildings and things like that. We are collaborating with that. So that's a big ongoing activity.
Good.
The personal and public safety in the community. Right? So that's a major initiative. So we appeal to persons especially in the diaspora, whatever they can contribute one way or the other to the numbers we gave earlier. We are in the process of doing that. And by the way, I forgot to mention, we are hoping to distribute food hampers in the village this coming Christmas as an initiative. So we are in the process of collecting food stuff and to send those home.
Okay.
And that is why getting the NGO status was so important for us, so we can pursue that apart from opening an account at home and finally overseas as well.
Okay.
So those are some of the
sounds good. Now
the
you talk
initiatives we hope to.
in terms of that safety, and you said there's no signage along the railway, but I know that Keys is one of the few, if perhaps maybe the only village where there is a bridge to allow you to cross, for pedestrians to cross over the railway onto the other side, even while a train is passing. I visited there after we had our first talk in May. I visited there and went and took some pictures. And I was also impressed by the fact that someone, and I think I spoke to a lady who was nearby, and she told me she was a part of the the care and beautification of the area by the said bridge. She's planted a lot of nice flowers and maintained them and watered them and keep the place looking really, really nice. Fence it around and so on. And I think it's admirable. It's a pity it's in I should say it's off the main route going through the village. But I would encourage persons to stop and visit that area by the bridge and see exactly what she has done there. You familiar with that
Yes.
project?
Yes, I back in the day, and there were especially the ladies. They used to have what they call, I think, a Homes and Gardens Village Festival. I think it was sponsored by the 4-H back in the day.
Yes, and Keon used to feature very prominently in that every year. They used to win prizes.
It was both at a village and an individual level in the different communities. So you would have a champion village, but within the village itself, you would have individuals, and mainly ladies, who would decorate and adorn the house and the environs with beautiful plants and flowers. And so that is a kind of spin-off that you described that down by that area.
Okay.
From those days. Persons like, I don't want to call name for fear of not mentioning, but persons like, there was a lady known as Ethel Griffin. Her last son is one of the community leaders, Royston Griffin, in the community. You had people like Mrs. Vaughan, a lady by the name Mrs. Glasgow, we call her Lulu. A gentleman later on who took it to a different level and was more associated with the Turtle, a man they call Solus, who is the grandfather of Lucine Vaughan. He took the decoration, using plant decoration, and even stuff that he found along the beach in Keys, and it was like a little Garden of Eden that man used to have at the end of the village there. So, yes, but you mentioned about that overhead crossing, right?
Yes.
For those of us who know what it was, what you as tractors used to literally drive, that was the crossing. You cannot ride a bike over that crossing right now.
No, because it has steps now.
Okay.
Steps now.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just more.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just motive.
I
It's
said
just
in helping to upgrade that particular access.
Do you have photos of
That
the
they- because
original
they
structure?
removed sorry?
Do you have photos of the original structure?
Yes. Yes. They removed the original structure. In fact, parts of it is still in place. They actually built on top of the walls. There are two parallel walls for the railway, and they built on top of that because my understanding is that the locomotives that they use are higher. So when that initiative was about to start, at the a number of surveys were done, and we were promised, foolishly we believed, that what they were going to bring or replace was going to be much better than what was there. Ask anybody in the village who knows if they think that is better. That's all I would say. Don't take my word for it.
Okay.
Right? Right now, for persons who are living on the seaside of the village, on the other side of the railway, they have to go further down in the village. But for those persons who know, he's past Monroe's, going towards Keonway, past Monroe's mechanic shop.
Yes.
And then turn and go across the railway itself and come along our dirt track.
That's the same road that will take you also down to the beach right now.
Right. Well, rather than going all the way towards the beach, you could make a slight right.
Yes.
And that dirt road will take you to the housing area.
Okay, Cypher, we're going to take a commercial break and we'll come right back after.
$1,000 in total savings. No down payment. Free servicing for 12 months. Free bill of sale. $1,000 in groceries or 3 months of free gas. Free registration, licensing, tinting, and accessories. And 4% VAT off on top of it all. Yes, you've heard right. Everything free and 4% VAT off. But listen closely. This incredible sale ends when June ends. No extensions. No do-overs. This is your final call. Your last chance for the biggest auto sales saving for the year. So don't walk, run to Hostos Automotive now. Your dream car is waiting, and these deals are ready to roll. Hostos Automotive, where affordability meets the road. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, listeners, we are back on Heritage Matters. Welcome back. And we are here discussing with Mr. Saifor Philip about the Keys community and the Keys Global Empowerment Association. We were last talking about that bridge that used to cross over from the main road in Keys onto the seaward side of the village where the railway crosses.
Yes.
Yes, so tell us some more, as you were saying.
Yeah, so we are hoping to to dialogue with the St. Scenic Railway to see how we can improve, because we're not looking back. But we understand it's a viable business nationally, and we think because of our uniqueness and stuff like that, they can do things to enhance their product as well as to boost the scenery in the particular area, and I'm sure they have ideas, and we have worked with some of the leadership in the past, and I'm sure they'll be more than willing to entertain us as they have done.
Well, I hope you have some success there.
Now that we have our group. Sorry?
Yeah, I'm saying I hope you have some success there, and that you are able to convince them to assist you in restoring the bridge to some of the glory that you experienced before. And maybe even during their tours, it can be a high point that when they're passing on that bridge, they can mention its importance to the village and the fact that it is perhaps the only overhead bridge in St. Kitts along the scenic railway.
Well, on a lighter note, talking about that bridge, Percy, back in the day, right, when the locomotives would pass under that overpass, and I'm not claiming that I was part of it, because I was not. But during those days, you could literally stand on top of the crossing, right, and see the locomotive passing under that crossing, right? Well, you always had adventurous guys in the island, and it was not uncommon for persons from Bastia, Connery, Cairn, depending on which direction, that would pass on the locomotive trains, the trucks as we used to call them, and we could stand up on top and see them underneath, right? No. So here goes. If you happen, and there was always, rivalry among villagers, people from different villages. So when they pass through Keys, if you happen to have done something to somebody from Keys, and you happen to be on one of those locomotives, and somebody who knew that you had done something in Keys saw you, we simply waited on top of that overpass for you to pass under. And we tried to mete out some sort of punishment that you couldn't respond to because you had to take cover. So you can imagine some locomotive trucks And there are guys on top of the crossing who could see you between there.
Yeah. Because
All right. I
they
think you
used
got
to
a
ride
picture, right?
between there because, for one, it used to hide them from the drivers, so no one would know that they were on the train.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So they wouldn't see them. But back to one of the reasons why the safety initiatives with an S that we are playing a big part. There are several young men especially who lost limbs, especially legs or part of their legs in the village from the back then the St. Kitts Sugar Factory trains, you know.
Yes. And in
There are
Bastille.
guys right now living in the village who are alive today who lost at least one leg on those trains. Are you just talking about signage on the trains along the railway? So it's not prevalent now. Back in the day when we used to say you hop in the loco, that doesn't happen as much. But that was life, because back in the day, for example, and some of the persons we're gonna bring to light are persons who are of sporting fame. There's a young, well, not so young now, but who made the St. Kitts cricket team, national team, senior team. He was from Canada Estate. His name is Dennis Levine.
Yes.
Most people growing up know him as Chiefy. He drives a taxi right now. He made the St. Kitts cricket team belatedly, right? And when he made the team, you wouldn't believe, Keys didn't have a proper cricket pitch. I mean, no place for anybody to play sports. So the only place that we had was to hollow out, so to speak, a piece of land on the Canada Hill. Right on Canada Hill is like, what do you call it? The name is escaping me. But could you imagine playing cricket on the side of a hill?
Yes, we talked about it last time.
You cut out you cut out a piece of the hill to get the cricket pitch. If you follow,
you sort of made a terrace.
That's the word I'm looking for. Terrace.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that the field itself was on a slope, so you're either feeling up the hillside or down the hillside. Right? But that's a whole story. But that guy I mentioned, Dennis Levine, that's where he learned to play cricket. And he made the St. Kitts team. And in fact, when he came to prominence, some people had the audacity, although he was doing well, to ask him where he learned to play cricket. He didn't have it as a youngster. That was based when you went to school in Kayan and stuff like that. He got a better area to
play. Yeah, so
but
play
that's
at
a whole another thing. I while I'm in Canada Estate, because that is included in our projects, because Canada, it almost seemed as if Keys, and this is unofficial, this is come from me, Keys was like an outgrowth from Canada Estate.
Okay. So that was the official estate, right? And Keys was like the residential area for Canada Estate.
Yes. It was an old growth. Back then, like most other estates, plantations, you had a long house. The long house was at Canada Estate. There's several persons who was working on the estate lived there. Moving along, the first, and I stand to be corrected, arguably the first Chinese restaurant in St. Kitts was located at Canada Estate. There
yes, in the estate building.
House. It has several stories. The building, the wooden building, once housed a Chinese restaurant.
Do you recall the name of it?
I don't remember the name, but
okay.
I have the name somewhere recorded. But yeah, later on, the people who were interested in entertainment, they used some of the old structures, wall structures. I think they had the Cotton Club and other things there at one time at Canada Estate. And that was there. Don't think they're functional now, but the walls are there. Some old things associated with sugar production. The top of the hill, a little knoll. That once had a windmill. That windmill collapsed. I think it was in the mid-70s. There was an earthquake.
That would have been 74. That would have been 74 when we had that big earthquake.
Right. Those walls of Jericho came tumbling down then. Sadly, and I use the word sadly, those stones disappeared. Not because of the earthquake pulled them down, and that is why people like you and your Heritage Society Matters program become so important. Somebody put down a residential structure there as well. I don't know the status of that right now. On the top of that site where the windmill was.
Where the windmill was.
Yes, that's there. Talking about sites, there are several fields in the village where the remains of wells are still there in the village itself. Not to mention one of the major wells at Bow, that hill overlooking the quarry area, which has now been removed.
Yes.
I think you probably know of that because I know your experts take you hither, thither, and beyond.
Yeah.
But there is a huge well up in that area as well. And one important landmark, which I haven't heard mentioned for some time, which we are hoping to do some research on as well, is an area that we call Gun Hill. You may have heard of the name.
Yes.
It's an area between Keys and Keyon. My understanding is that Keyon was like on the fringe of that demarcation between the French and the English.
That's correct.
That on that slope, on the hillside slope, that area was called Gun Hill. I don't remember seeing a gun, but as a small boy, we all knew where Gun Hill was because it was claimed that there were several cannons there at one time.
Yeah, it was probably one of the defense positions for the French to protect their part of the island.
No doubt.
I've seen some old.
When as small boys, we used to go up there to look Mansiport, fat pork, mangoes, and the whole area there. That is where we spend quite a bit of our time, especially during the summer months. Apart from picking grapes on the beach and stuff like that, but those are some of the stuff that we were involved in, apart from the catching fish. And before I forget, I spoke about Canada Estate. Two notable persons who lived at Canada Estate for some time had entered the Calypso Arena for a number of years. There was a famous one, King of the 29 Fellas.
Yeah, I didn't know whose keys he was from.
Persons. Yeah. When he lived in Canada Estate. Well, I think his house got destroyed by fire sometime, and subsequently he lived in the village proper, but that was in his latter years. But he was still performing in the Calypso era. Fishermen, fish. You would go fishing with these guys and throw you in the sand up in the same area, and he catching fish and you can't catch any. they seem to. But he too was one of those powers from Canada Estate. Now we have some famous fishermen again, because back in the day, fishing boats used to be tied up at Canada Bay. Fishermen again, because back in the day, fishing boats used to be tied up at Canada Bay. If you go to Kid Bay, along the beach,
Yeah.
those are things we used to do as small boys. Of course, at Great Heats Pond, that was a back road rather than going along the street to get to Connery. Yeah, those are some of the things the group is interested and working on.
The caves,
And
caves
so
in Keys. Is there anything that the KGEA will be doing with those caves?
Yes. We are in touch. We have started to work with somebody at the Ministry of Agriculture. But right now we have been speaking to persons at the Ministry of Environment. I don't have the specific name of the person, but it's, I think it's Ed Mead. I don't want to miscall the name, but I think it's an Ed Mead, I was told, who is very interested and enthusiastic about working along with us to do something there. Again, we wanted to, before we come out, we want to say anything. We identify certain things and personnel in the various departments who we can work with. For example, I talk about the post office box. Contact has already been made with the post office and stuff like that. The water department with the water tank, which is not functional, but, you know. But what we do, we feel that what we have in place.
Thurston, yes.
We feel that what we have in place.
Thurston, yes. Thurston.
Thurston. There was a gentleman who worked for Thurston.
Thurston.
Thurston. There was a gentleman who worked for Thurston back then, and they were involved.
It was
His name was Valon Grant. People from as far as Dearborn, from Basket would bring their motors right in Keys for him to do the repairs on them.
Mm-hmm.
He is a brother to Manu, who has the mechanic shop right there. That Philip family also was famous over the years for pioneering the restaurant business in a name of Dinsey, synonymous with goat water, black pudding, and the local drinks. Over the years, her daughter Angela still runs it. It's a restaurant like no other. This is no joke. I've never seen persons who were hungry or are hungry would come and patiently wait, sometimes for hours, to get that black pudding or goat water from Dinsey.
Oh, that's the one at the entrance coming from town. It's still there on the little hill coming into the village.
You got it.
Yeah, because
I didn't want to tell you where
I and many others used to come all the way from Bastia just to get sauce and black pudding from that shop. I went there up to just recently. It used to be very popular.
Yes, well, that business goes back generations.
Mm-hmm.
The business moved there, but there was a time when they operated out of their house area, and then they opened a little restaurant. Used to call it the Strand in Keys Village, before, run by Valon Grant, before he moved it to Keon.
Mm-hmm.
I think they say that Chinese place or something like that is in that particular building, owned by the Grants. But that is where that was the beginning there.
Okay.
And as I said, that Philip family is very prominent. One of the persons we know we are going to recognize is a guy by the name of Herman Philip. Most people known as Chammy. Back in his day, he was the main heavy equipment operator. Many playing fields in St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla were done by him. And I noticed I use the word Anguilla. That's where he also went, Herman Philip. He also ran a little business from his household right there in the village. repair of bicycle tires, vehicle tires on a weekends when not even places in Boston were open. People come from all over right there and get their tubes patched and stuff like that. This guy did it. He was a self-taught mechanic. He would strip our Land Rover and other vehicles and literally strip them to the ground. They became a shell and put it back. Many a young man was trained under him. When he
Okay.
at present.
Well,
People were
Cyfroy,
scared to do it.
yeah, we are at the end of the program now. We have to break for our news. And so I want to thank you very much for joining us today on the program and for giving us the information you've given about Keys Global Empowerment Association and about Keys and all those little interesting facts and persons related to Keys and its development over the years. And we hope that at some point in time your members will join us. I think when you all are getting together in December, we can consider talking again about what you are doing. And so do keep in touch and we will keep in contact with you. Okay, so thank you very much, Cyfroy, for joining us. And to our listeners, we wish to thank you all for being with us today. And we see you next 2 Fridays on Heritage Matters.